In this video, I'm walking you through how to do child's pose elevated, palms flat. For this exercise, it's going to require you to be able to kneel like this without there being any knee pain. So if kneeling like this is going to cause you knee pain, I don't want you doing this exercise. I don't agree with people padding underneath their knees because that is you pain killing a sensation that your body is wanting you to hear. So we do not kneel if we cannot kneel comfortably without there being any padding underneath our knees. Listen to your body, do something different instead. I'm going to show you this exercise from two different angles. So to start with, we are going to think about our lower body here. So I've already mentioned we're going to be kneeling and we're coming down on our elbows like this. But start off in an all fours position. You're putting your toes, your ankles, your knees and your hips in alignment, and you're keeping your femurs, your thigh bones, above your hips here. You're trying to point your toes to open up the front of the ankle joint into plantar flexion. You might get foot cramp whilst you're doing this, but that's great. Don't let the feet come up. We're trying to keep the feet down and we're trying to keep nice train track alignment from toes, ankles, knees and hips. Without shifting the pelvis forwards and backwards and without shifting the pelvis forwards, we're going to come down onto our elbows, and I will show you this from the front view as well. My elbows have gone as wide as my mat, and my thumbs are basically touching and my index fingers are basically touching. So I'm kind of in like a diamond shape in my upper body. I'm spreading my fingers really, really wide here, and I'm being super active through my hands. So your hands are a pivotal part of this exercise, and you need to make sure that you are thinking about engaging them with the floor. You spread them wide, you keep them flat, you keep them grounded. We want your hands really, really, really working hard here, so do not forget them. You're going to put your head on the floor like so. And keeping your hips above your knees, what we're going to do is push into those active fingers and hands, push down into the floor, and you're going to use that pushing down into the floor to almost push your torso almost imperceptibly backwards, but you're going to feel like it slightly lifts up away from the floor. So there's a downwards and a sort of forwards push here through my hands, through my fingers, through my forearms. And what this is doing is it's waking up the muscles through my arms, into my shoulders and into my mid back. So this is what it looks like. I haven't finished with my cues yet. I'm going to show you this front on, and then we're going to show you what you're not looking for as you do this exercise. So front on, it looks a bit like this. Toes, ankles, knees and hips in alignment. Head goes on the floor or slightly off the floor, but we're keeping the back of the neck long. The elbows go wide. The hands come together. The fingers are really active, and we're pushing down into each and every one of our fingers. We're pushing down into the palms of our hands. We're pushing down into our forearms, and it's creating ever such a slight backwards push through our torso. I just had a lovely click in my right arm, which is always a nice sign for me. So the hips are going to move as we do that push down with the hands and with the arms. Your hips are going to move slightly further backwards, but I don't want you to feel like you're pulling backwards from your hips. So I don't want it to feel like this is the area of your body driving that movement. It's the power of your hands and your arms that is slightly pushing your torso backwards. So this should feel like an incredible amount of hard work through your hands, through your arms, through your shoulders and through your upper body, like looking like this. What we do not want, so the common compensations that we have here are, I'm going to say one of three things. So the first thing is that if you are somebody like me who is anterior and who likes to flare their rib cage, you might bring yourself into a position a bit like this. Can you see here how I'm like bowed in my mid back? So I'm kind of stretching long through my belly and I'm a bit compressed in my mid back. When I'm in this position, the angle of my armpit is not very open. So this is my body trying to avoid opening up my armpit, which is really what we're going after. I'm sagging in my mid-back just because that's what my body's good at. So what I would need to do if I was doing this is I need to think about my lower rib cage, and I need to pull my lower rib cage up towards the ceiling a bit. Can you see there how that changes, that sagging from this to this? And what that change does is it also opens up the front of my armpit so that my shoulders and my arms are going to work harder. What I need to be careful of is that by correcting my rib cage in that way, I don't go too far and then tuck my pelvis under. So can you see there how my pelvis is tucked under and I've now got a bit too much space through the front of my hips? The pelvis rolls forwards so that the front of the hip joint closes up, and you may also notice that your hips cramp. That's fine, the hips are going to be working here. But I don't want to go so far forwards that I sag, so I control my rib cage, but I don't go so far that I tuck myself posteriorly. So that's really the second compensation that you'll see. Because of my posture, this is how I want to be. But for other people, you're going to be posterior already, so you're going to want to be a bit like this, like domed through your spine, rounded through your pelvis. So if this is you, what you need to do is roll that pelvis forward so you close up the front of the hip joint. Once again, I'm getting tired holding that. So compensation number one, sagging in the mid-back. Compensation number two, being too rounded through the spine and too tucked under in the pelvis. The pelvis is engaged, but the spine is straight. The next thing that we will notice is that people will do funny things to avoid the armpit from being open. So what you might have is you might have your arms a bit too far back so that the armpits stay closed. We don't want that. Or you might have your arms like so far forwards, it's also kind of bypassing the work because it's a bit too much of a stretch. Take the elbows out wide and really see if you can create this like 180-degree angle here at the elbow, so at the armpit. So you can see side on there how open my armpit is versus this where it's a bit too closed, or this where it's so open that it's like not active and it's a bit too passive. All right? I might just do another quick little run through of that and perhaps 1 minute in the exercise just to go through it all again. Toes, ankles, knees and hips in alignment, tops of feet on the floor. We're coming down to our elbows and our hips are staying above our knees. The elbows go about as wide as the yoga mat. The thumbs nearly touch, the index fingers nearly touch. The hands spread wide. We're really active in our fingers. We're pushing down into the hands. The head relaxes on the floor. I'm going to try and zip up my rib cage slightly to keep my spine straight. My pelvis still rolls forwards. So it's like the pelvis is moving in the different direction to what the rib cage is moving in. As I do that, it then closes up the angle of my armpit slightly. So I'm going to find a position where my elbows continue, oh my God, I can't get my words out, so that my armpits really continue to open. That feels much more hard work. I keep breathing. I'm going to keep my jaw relaxed, and I'm going to set my timer here for a minute. Off we go. So maintaining calm, deep, diaphragmatic breathing. My hands are super active. The fingers pin into the floor. The palms pin into the floor. The forearms pin into the floor. The back of my neck stays long. The top of my head is actually just off the floor slightly here. The pushing down of my hands and my arms is creating a little tiny movement backwards in my torso, but it's not very much. My pelvis rolls forward so that I can feel my hips working. I'm not sagging into my rib cage, and I'm continuing to breathe here. Tops of the feet stay on the floor. Calm, steady, nasal, diaphragmatic breath, hands and arms and shoulders working really, really, really hard here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That is child's pose, palms flat. Really, really good exercise for opening up the shoulders, repositioning the shoulders, getting rid of thoracic rotation, getting rid of thoracic flexion, but it's also a great exercise for pelvic balance as well. I hope you enjoyed.